All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Stephanie Pepper, and I also have Ravi Chima joining us today to co-host on this webinar. Today, we're going to be going over the feature release preview for quarter 4. So we are going to start doing these quarterly, and just to give you an idea of what to expect in the next update. We've already slowly started releasing this update to some customers, and it's going really well so far. And we're just going to slowly start releasing that to the rest of you guys here very soon. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're just going to go over a few things that are going to be coming out in this update. Some exciting stuff. So first of all, we've done some reporting enhancements. As always, administrators, please download those default grid layouts from the file menu in eManage. So you'll just go File, Download Default Grid Layouts. Only the administrator needs to do that. You guys should be pretty used to that. It comes out at the top of every release notes, usually in red, bold. That's just downloading any default grid layouts we've added in. It will override anything you already have saved as a default grid, but you can always just reopen those up and save them as your default by accessing your grid functions. If anybody has any questions or issues with that, always feel free to call into support. So go ahead and get started on some of those reporting enhancements. We did add the vendor field to the BOM report. So when you guys go into a project and into the bill of materials and you're on that view quotes tab, if you're not already using this print BOM report, it's a pretty nice report. You just highlight your quote and hit print BOM. Gives you a really nice itemized list of all of the product on your quote without all the presentation items of a quote, so the cover page and no sell prices or anything like that. Just a really clean itemized list of product. I've seen people use that for checks and things like that, but we did add the vendor field to that base report. Keep in mind on any of these reports, not the today reports, but any actual PDF style reports, if you do have a custom already saved as a default, you will want to remove those so that you can see the new defaults that we've added in. If you need any help with that, again, just call into support. Also, we've added the project manager to some of the today reports. So that today menu on the right side of eManage, the project manager field, that column wasn't there. So we've added that into a lot of those that might make it a little bit helpful to manage the project. We've also updated the PO report for continuous line numbering. So before the POs per phase, the numbering would start over. Now it's just going to continually number all the way down through the vendor purchase order. Some good changes there. To continue with some of those reporting enhancements, we also updated the sales tax report for cash-based reporting by pay date. So when you go into reports, sales tax payable report, I used to just have invoice date and some of these options here. You're going to see this in there now, payment receive date, and you can put a date range in there if you are a cash-based reporting company. Big one here, project order status grid. This has been requested for quite some time now. I'm really excited about this one. When you guys go in and access the project information, so the very first screen that you see whenever you go into a project, you'll see next to the project contacts tab, which it defaults automatically to have your project contacts open. But you have you're now going to have a third new tab. There was already 2 tabs there before. This label did change, so now it says team member / activity. Gives you a better idea of what's actually behind that. If you're not aware of that, you should. You can always call into support and ask us about that. But the new one, order status, it's going to be just a really great place to go and centrally look at this project by order, to look at where it's at kind of in the workflow and be able to project a little bit better instead of going to multiple places in the system or multiple reports. It's all going to be right there in one tab, and it's going to say order status. So it's going to list out your order up top and a little bit of order information. So you're seeing some of this information pull from the order entry window. But you're also going to get, if it's dropped on the calendar, you're going to get your first scheduled install date, your last scheduled install date. It's going to show you if the product's been received, all product, just by quick glance right there on that screen, you're gonna be able to see this information. It's gonna list out all your acknowledgements and all the acknowledged ship dates for those. So like I said, quick glance, you wanna see kind of where this order is at without, bugging your partner or somebody about, how we received this acknowledgement, what's the acknowledged ship date. It's gonna be all right there for everyone to access. So big one there, excited about that. We've also made a pretty big change to the work order. So when you're in the calendar and you're doing your scheduling and you print those work orders or those delivery tickets, it's going to be a pretty big change for everyone. So I'm welcoming. I'm going to show you guys what that's going to look like. But I'm definitely welcoming all feedback. If you guys want to see anything different, you have any good or bad feedback, I'd love to hear it. But this will kind of give you an idea of what that's going to look like, that report. So what we did here was I some experience that I had at my old dealership. We really never wanted the customer to even bother, seeing this timesheet, an internal document where we're time tracking for internal purposes only, costing and whatnot. So we separated that timesheet off. So here you can see it's just separated off from the rest of the packet. Okay. If you just came in and you're not muted, if you don't mind just muting yourself. Thank you. So from here, you're going to have a different header up here as well. So that's kind of nice. We've added a couple of things up top. So the customer PO number has been added on to the delivery ticket packet. That's kind of one of those things where you have some customers that need that number in order to check in at the front desk or things like that. It kind of becomes helpful for some of the clients. But we also added the project manager to the header as well. One other big change, the old work order had a random generated work order number that didn't really apply to anything. So I've actually taken that out. If there is anyone out there that was using that in some way, and you do want that back, just let me know and I can either create you a sub report or talk to me about what you were using that for, and we can kind of figure out if that's going to be useful for everyone else as well. But the number that matters most to us is that project number. So we put that project number in there, generate automatically on the packet. You'll have your order name there. So if you're using my best practice, which we will be finding out on the order entry webinar coming up, your quote number should really be a part of your order name. So you should see that on the packet. So some other big changes, this is now your delivery ticket. Contacts are still going to show your notes, your items. I changed up the punch list form. Before it was printing a whole page for a punch list and exceptions. Hopefully you're not like us, you were not getting those back, filled in as often as we hope that they're not being filled in. So, I just minimize those so that we're not wasting a bunch of paper. Usually if it exceeds that little area, they can just fill that in on another form. You still have your customer acceptance. And then at the bottom, you can see your footers changed up a bit. We've added this in. I found this very helpful at the dealer that I was working at. This is going to be up to the installer's responsibility. So this might be a training thing you want to get with your install team about. But at the bottom, you can see on the delivery ticket, there's a for office use only section. And it's just for them to check off, is it complete? Okay. When this paperwork's coming back, I want to be able to easily sort through it quickly and know, if it says work order complete, that's going in a pile that I know can invoice right away. If there's a punch list, okay, this needs attention, it needs to go to so-and-so. And just quickly I can, thumb through this paperwork and get it to who it needs to go to quickly. So that came in really helpful. And then lastly, the customer copy. This was not a part of the document before. You have now a copy that you can leave with your customer. So big changes there, yeah. It's a much, larger packet, but, that's what you really need. If you do print your map, that is going to print in between your delivery ticket and your customer copy. Then again, anybody has any feedback, questions, comments on this work order, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. So some UI updates, some user interface updates. We updated a few more things in this, but I really wanted to touch on the big ones. We updated the new edit part window just for easier data entry. So when entering a new part, whenever you tab through it, it just goes a little bit smoother, acts a little less funky. Okay. We also enhance the auto parts configurator window, again, just for easier data entry. Just looks a lot better, a little bit easier to read and navigate through that window. We also upgraded and tested HON web services. They did some updates on their end, so we just upgraded and tested to support those updates on their end. If you're not using H&I web services, your HON, any of those synergy companies, just let us know, please, and we can get you set up there. Chat coming in. Okay, I'll come right back. Okay, so we also added quote number to the quick search. It did override the function key for service ticket. Again, any feedback, if you were someone that was using that quite a bit, we were kind of banking on people not using that F6. We moved F6 to quote number. If you're not using your shortcuts or the quick search, I highly suggest to be doing so. If you know what your project number is, quickly you can just punch F4 on your keyboard, put your project number in, but now you can also use F6 quote number. So that might be a helpful tool. We also upgraded the web portal server for increased performance. If you don't have your web portal, let support, just email support at emanage1.com. They can definitely get that web portal set up for you. You can use that on the go on any mobile device where you have internet. You can access eManage. Big changes on action items, a couple big ones. Option to make an action item commissionable cost. So you now have the ability to say, okay, I want this to apply as a commissionable cost and deduct from the overall profit. So that's a big one. I think that this is going to be really helpful, especially when it comes to design. We're always trying to find better ways to kind of capture, and that's one of those areas in the industry where it's kind of difficult to capture that time. They're working on several projects, and so you have the option to make them commissionable now. You also have the option to send email notification to salesperson. And that's in addition to the alert that they're already getting inside of eManage. If you have it set up to alert the salesperson, it's just going to send them an email notification saying that an action item was completed or rejected. So really nice little addition there. Some bug fixes that we applied for this update. For our Canadian dealers, we did correct the Canadian tax on the quick quotes. So if you want to go ahead and use quick quotes, the tax will apply there now. We also applied the fix for the refresh when importing into BOM on the tax. So the tax was sometimes applying and sometimes not. That should definitely be fixed now. We also did the calculation fix on Canadian progress invoices, progress billings for customers. There's a little bug there. For Technion Web Services, we did fix the issue with when exporting orders that contained items with no tags, it erroring out. So that's no longer an issue there. Also, exporting orders that contained items not tied to a phase. Or if you manually added a line item in the PO module, those are not tied to a phase as well. So if anything that's added in there manually and processed through web services in eManage, that should not have an issue. We also added some additional fields for project matrix users. We fixed the issue with the shipping tag not submitting in Herman Miller order services. That should no longer be a problem there. In receiving, there was, if you're not familiar with or you've seen it probably in the past, there's a little exclamation point whenever you're scheduling next to your item that you've dragged and dropped onto the calendar. That is supposed to be if all items have not been received in full on that particular order. There was a small bug there, so now you should definitely be able to use that as a really nice tool. If there's an exclamation point, that means it has not been fully received. And bin location is no longer required when receiving. So that pop-up box that happens every time you're not bin locating items or locating items in your warehouse, assigning a location, there was a pop-up. That no longer is going to pop up, so you don't get the little reminder, but we had several users, several clients that doing any locations. So we just got rid of that. So if you are bin locating, still follow the same procedure, put your bin location in and then receive it. Commissions can now be marked as unpaid by right-clicking on the commission and marking them as unpaid. Small bug there. And then we also fixed an issue with search payable dates. There was an issue with the criteria and, the little, sorry, lost my train of thought. The little paid or not paid, just the search criteria. There was a small bug there. Those should all be working now. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Ravi here, and he's going to talk to you guys about the updated zip code and tax rate module.
Thanks, Stephanie. So we have made quite a few changes to tax rates. There will now be a annual service. It will be $750 per year per customer. That means you're the dealer. You can opt out of this if you don't want the updates. You just email support. They will be on a monthly basis. We'll go through the procedure of how to update, and if you are opting out, you can still manually update them. We won't be going through that process today, but that is in the help guide. It's also in the release notes. So we did make some other enhancements as well. Any military bases located outside of the US are now in a state labeled AB. And there was some bugs with refreshing in the zip codes and tax window. Okay. Oops. So I'm just going to switch over to eManage real quick. Oops. Sorry, Stephanie, can you just switch over?
Sorry.
Because I got no. There we go. Okay, so to import the tax rates, made it pretty simple now. It's just under the tools menu and then import and import sales tax rates. So when you're doing this, it can take quite a while depending on the size of the state, how many zip codes there are, your internet connection, all that stuff kind of plays part of it. What you'll do is you'll select your state or several if you want to. We do recommend doing one at a time so you don't freeze up your computer too much. You'll hit show selected data and you can see you don't need to select anything in here. You can go through if you want to, but it's all good. And then you'll just hit update tax rates. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. It will probably freeze the computer for about a minute or so on us. That's just it pulling data from our server and then putting it onto yours, basically. And once this is done, I'm just going to go over kind of some of the things you might see when you update this. Like you won't have any problems in this window, but in the admin, it may duplicate states, for example. Kind of go through the process of what you'll need to do if that happens.
And so correct me if I'm wrong, Ravi, but I believe that this, the tax rates are being released in this update coming out to you guys at no charge. And then
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for getting that one.
And again, yes, if you want to opt out, just email support, let them know that you want to opt out. But there's obviously an additional, tax service, and we're just going to be monitoring them and updating them monthly for you guys.
And again, that charge will just be kind of with your support contract. You're not opting out of it. And definitely recommend doing this kind of like at an end of day or whenever you can leave your computer on, maybe even during lunch. Only one person will need to do this.
As y'all can see, my internet connection is very slow.
Okay, so once it completes, it'll just give you that message, import complete, and you can just go ahead and close the window. If you are doing other states, just uncheck the one you just did, click on the next one, and just repeat the process. So I'm just gonna go into the admin here, and then under tools and zip codes is where the taxes are. So we did Hawaii. Oops. Hmm. Stephanie, am I looking right over it?
I didn't see it, but
Oh, you know what? Maybe we just need to.
oh, that's true.
Okay, I haven't had that happen to me. Um, I'll look into that, but I'm just gonna demo this. So what will happen sometimes when you import is you'll get kind of duplicate states. One of them will have incorrect tax. The reason that's happening is because there is zip codes that used to exist. Probably those post offices had a merge and it no longer exists. If you see this anywhere, please call into support. We can help you find out if there's any companies tied to those zip codes or if we can just go ahead and delete them. We don't want to delete anything before checking that. It's a pretty easy fix, but if you don't do it, when you go and create a new company and if you type in one of those zip codes, it'll show up as a pop-up telling you to select a state, and then one of them will have the incorrect tax rate. You don't want to accidentally select.
Perfect. Is there anything else that they should expect?
Uh, no, that should be everything.
Okay. So if you guys have any problems with that, just call into support. They can definitely help you out there in getting rid of and figuring out where to fix the issue there. So what I'm going to do is if you want to unmute yourself at this point, that's what we have for the presentation here. I have some chats coming in, but if you want to unmute yourself, if anybody has any questions, if there's anything we need to show you on the screen, we can do so at this time. Sam, I'm going to review your question and I'll just shoot you an individual email. Looks like you got a big question there and some comments and suggestions. So I'll definitely get with you on that one. Is there any other questions?
Stephanie, Carl Hansen here in Salt Lake.
Hey, Carl, how are you?
Doing well, thanks.
Good.
These are great enhancements. Thank you. Can you give us some insight on what might be coming in the next round?
What might be coming on what now?
The next enhancements you're working on?
Oh goodness. Like past what we showed you here. Definitely for this year projects, we're focusing on inventory. Inventory is a big one. I know everybody's been wondering kind of where that's at. That's already in the test phases, so we're definitely focusing there. But yeah, just continued UI updates. Ravi, do you have anything off the top of your head?
We are also working on the resource planner. I'm not sure if
That's
that'll
right.
be That probably won't be this year. That'll be early next year, kind of thing.
That's the one I was curious about. So that's,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we're getting ready to implement a project resource planner. It's going to kind of change up how our schedulers are doing things on their end and make it a whole lot easier to just assign resources, assign install items and product. It's going to look totally different, more grid style than calendar. You'll still use your calendar, and it's more for visual purposes, but the resource planner is going to be just much easier to use and manipulate. So we're getting excited about that one too.
Kind of like a project management style.
Yes, definitely.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're very welcome.
So Sam asked, does the new update include a way to enlarge user menu icons and font size? Not at this time. That is something we can try and look into, but I'm not sure what that involves on the development side, because I do believe we kind of base all our stuff on Windows UI.
Mm-hmm. He did ask another question that came in, the time tracking on action item. So the question was if it only runs when the action item window is open. That is correct. It's only tracking your time when the action item is open. So it's very important to leave that action item open while you're doing that function.
And then that affects the commissionable amount as well.
Correct. Yeah. So it'll just deduct from. It'll be included in the commissionable cost. All right. If we don't have any further questions, I can let you guys go. I do appreciate your time. I hope you guys are finding some value in these webinars, and we're definitely excited to be doing this type of webinar for the updates. Again, we will be doing these quarterly, with the update that does come out. We're going to try to do them before, but sometimes it might fall after, but we'll still give you a really good idea of kind of what's coming out in those updates and how you can better utilize the software. Again, appreciate your time, and if you have any questions or any issues, feel free to contact us. Contact information is on the screen there. Otherwise, I hope you guys all have a great weekend. I'll stay on for a little longer if there's anybody else, but have a good weekend otherwise.
So I see Sam asked another question. Are there any plans to add a delivered status that corresponds to a project PO item ID? That isn't currently something that we've thought about, but it could potentially be something we can discuss. Maybe we can take that offline. I do see you asked about that a little bit earlier as well. Let's take that offline and get some details on what exactly you're looking for and see what we can do.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again, everyone. Hope you guys have a good weekend.